Hi guys, my name is Aris Rossi from the blog Sailing into Second, and today I'm coming to you to share with you my favorite paperless back to school tips. Now, I know that the back to school season can be a really stressful time for teachers. You have a curriculum to map out, a classroom to get ready, and not to mention all those kids that are going to be new. So, I've come to you today with my favorite tips to help lessen your workload and to become a little bit more paperless along the way. So, my first tip for you is how to collect period information the paperless way. Now, at back to school time, I would usually have all of these papers laid out on students' desks. And parents would come in, they would listen to my presentation. I would remind them to fill all these papers out and bring them back as soon as possible or send them in with their child. I would have like a little address form for their contact information in case the office needed to be updated with their new information. I would have parent volunteer sheets where if parents wanted to volunteer in the classroom, they could let me know their availability and what they would like to help with. And I would even have a parent questionnaire where they would tell me all about their child's strengths or weaknesses, maybe areas of need, and anything that I needed to know about their family. Now, those all might seem really organized ways to do things, but over the years, I found that I was either missing information from certain families, I would get it in, or I'd get part of it in and not all of it, and parents would just forget because it's such a busy time for families as well. And so I started thinking about an easier way to collect all the information, either at back to school night or meet the teacher, whatever you guys have, or even sending out an email with a link. So I got a little bit smart. I figured out the best way to get all this information was at back to school night for me. And so what I did was I printed out this little form here that just asks parents to use the link below or the QR code right here. And it would send them to a Google form where they would submit all that information that I showed you, all this stuff, paperless. And let me show you how that works. So parents could either use their smartphone to scan this or to go to that bit.ly link, or sometimes I would even have like an extra iPad or a Chromebook with the form already ready to go that asks them their contact information, all the volunteer information, all of that stuff that used to be on the papers was now on one Google form. I love using Google Forms to collect information. It's such an easy way. And once parents would either go to the link through the QR code or through the bit.ly link that I set up, it would take them to that form, they would fill it all out and submit it. And then I would have all of that information on a spreadsheet. So let me show you what that would look like. So the Google form that parents would have access to would look just like this. It would ask them for their name, their child's name, so I knew who was who, their email, their address, their phone number, anything else they'd like to share with me. This one is an example, but the one I would have for my parents would also include the questions about any strengths, weaknesses, anything else I'd like to know about their family, volunteer time, if they had a certain day of the week they'd like to come in and help either with students or with prep work, or if they're available for field trips. That would be something that I would add to this contact information form. And it's really neat because all of the information gets sent to a Google sheet. So it's kind of like an Excel sheet, and all of their information would be available in one sheet for me. And the reason that was so important for me is because I wasn't scrambling trying to collect all of these pieces of paper, and I wasn't trying to decipher handwriting. I wasn't trying to manually input all of this information onto my own Google sheet, which is what I used to do. And it used to take a long time collecting it, figuring out what it said, transcribing it, putting it into a Google sheet. And this just saves so much time for me, having the parents do it all at once at back to school night. So a question I usually get is, well, what if I don't have every parent go to back to school night or meet the teacher? Well, then that's easy. Most of parents, at least most of the parents in my school community, do attend that one back to school night or meet the teacher. And so I usually get most of my responses, but if not, then I would email or I would send, a little reminder sheet with the link or with this. I would send it home and hopefully get it back. So at least I wasn't inputting 30 different student name, addresses, parent contact information, volunteer information. It wasn't 30 of all of those. It was maybe like 5 or 6. And that's a lot more manageable. And guess what? It lessened my workload. So that was one way I got smart, and I stopped sending all the papers for their contact information. And it's just an easy way to update. If their address changes or if their contact information changes, you just go into your Google form or your Google Sheet, excuse me, and change any information that you need for that family. So it was really helpful, and I truly believe that this saved me a ton of time during the back to school season. So now that I've shared with you one way I love to use Google Forms during the back to school season, I'm going to share with you a few more ways that I love to use them to go paperless. So here was that form I shared with you that I put up during the back to school night or meet the teacher night. So you're going to get access to that at the very end of my session. Oh, before I move on, this is a really good website. It's a QR code generator.com. This is where I generate a lot of my QR codes that go onto some of my paperless forms. But what I wanted to show you was this. I first learned about this trick from my friend Soaring Sandy, and she has a blog and Instagram and all of that stuff. You can follow her there at Soaring Sandy. But she shared with me a really awesome way to keep track of books during the school year. I know a lot of my students check out my classroom library books, and they keep them as long as they need to, as long as they want to, but sometimes I wouldn't get them back. And so this was a really great way to keep track of who's checking out what books in your classroom. And it's just a Google form again, and you have the students type in their name, the title of the book. You can have the date so that you know when they are checking out the book, and then whether they're checking it in or checking it out. And you get your responses. This is just an example, but you get your responses on a spreadsheet, so I can show you what that looks like. So it would give you a timestamp of their name, the book, the date option, which needs to be fixed, and whether they're checking in or out. And what I love most about this is that I can keep track of which students have my books and whether it's time for them to turn them back in. So I can see that Paxton here has had Harry Potter since October. So it might be time for him to turn it back in and let someone else have a turn at reading it. So this is just a really awesome way to keep track of different books in your classroom library. And you can have the students scan a QR code that'll take them directly to this form. You can have students go to a bit.ly link. You could even have a sign with that information, the bit.ly link or the QR code, right next to your classroom library corner. And the students can simply take their device, their Chromebook, their iPad, whatever kind of digital device you guys use at school, and fill it out right away. So my next Google form tip for you for the back to school season is to stop using exit tickets the way you used to. Now, I used to use exit tickets on a little sheet. There would be little scraps of paper, or I would cut out the exit tickets and print out whatever question I wanted to ask my students, and I would use them a lot in my classroom. They're a really great way to collect information about your student population, whether they get a concept, they need reteaching, you need to reteach the whole concept to the class. They're just fabulous. I love them. And I'm not saying to stop using exit tickets. I'm simply saying get smarter about it, using the paperless way. So let me show you what a paperless exit ticket can look like on a Google form. So here is a version of an elapsed time exit ticket that I created last school year. And what I love most, besides them being paperless, you're going to hear me use that word over and over again. I hope you're not sick of it. But what I love most is that you can customize them and make them as complex, as rigorous as you would like. This one is like a 3-step exit ticket, and we were working on elapsed time, and it's just a complicated concept for third graders to understand, but it's really important that they know how to identify elapsed time. And so my question went further than just identifying, well, if you started this time and end time, what was the elapsed time? I asked them, my question was, Heather spent 25 minutes cleaning her room. If Heather finished cleaning her room at 6:15, what time did she start cleaning her room? And then I added, explain how you found your answer. And you can customize each question on a Google form. It could be multiple choice, it could be a short response, it could be a long response. I opted to go the long response because I wanted them to justify their thinking and kind of walk me through their process of figuring out their elapsed time. Once they've answered that question, it takes them to this one. It asks them, what strategy did you use in order to solve an elapsed time problem? Like I said, you can have different options for how to collect your answers. This one was a multiple choice. And then it took them to this final question where they had to watch an instructional video, like a little refresher on elapsed time and problem solving strategies, and then which strategy they'd use in order to solve this problem. So I really like the multiple steps that this exit ticket allowed me to do with my kids. Once they've submitted it, their responses, I'll take you to their responses. Their responses, you can kind of see how they answered, but like I said before, it'll take you to a Google sheet where it has all of their responses, and this was an example one, so you might see a bunch of different answers here, but it would be awesome if this was a great way to see who got your information, who didn't, who needs a little bit more help, or whether you need to reteach the entire concept. And you can do these throughout the year. If you have one-to-one devices or even a blended learning classroom, you can do these quite often and just rotate your kids with the devices if you don't have a complete class set. And my very last Google Form tip for you is to share with you a new way that I started using Google Forms with my kids. And you've all heard of the escape rooms or those lock boxes that your kids have to solve, where it has just different content that they have to get through and work as a group together to solve. Well, there's a paperless way for that too, guys, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is an example digital escape challenge that I created just for you guys, and you'll have access to it to kind of play around with it. But it was made completely on Google Forms, which is awesome. Google Forms are so versatile. I mean, I hope you guys are seeing that so far. You can use them not only to collect parent information or student information, you can use them for exit tickets, you can use them for fun escape challenges like this, the paperless way. So you would basically set up a Google form for this and just have different options for each response that they give you. So let's kind of go through this one to see what it would look like. I have directions, I have the title of it, I have a directions here for the kids or for you guys. I have an option at the very beginning. It says, are you ready to begin your tech challenge? You could click yes. So if the students clicked no, that would take them to a page that would say try again. If they clicked yes, which I'll show you, it'll take them to the first question. It says, can you unlock this box? Answer in all caps. What's the presenter's name? So you would enter my name, right? And remember it says answer in all caps. Then it takes them to the first unlocked box. And I've added these fun images here once they've unlocked a clue or a box. You can add like a still image that would say you've unlocked your first clue. I just thought it'd be fun to do this. So then you'd click next, and it would take you to the second question. It asks, what is a synonym for digital resources? And you've heard me talk about this word. Can you guess what it is? I'll tell it to you. It is paperless. It would take them to the next unlocked box. So just like students would unlock an envelope or unlock a box for all these questions that you would have for them, you could do it paperlessly. You don't have to buy boxes, locks, anything like that. This one was just like a little letter code that I found online, but it asks you, can you unlock this box? Answer in all caps. It's 2 words. And so each word or each little symbol correlates with a letter, and the phrase would say, go paperless. Oops. It would help if I could spell, right? Go paperless. And it says you've unlocked another box. Ready for the last clue? Be the first to solve this one and win the prize. So this is another little riddle that I created online. There are a lot of really cool puzzles that you can create free online. You just kind of have to Google it, but this one would say, you did it. And if you didn't answer it correctly, like if I didn't use all caps here, it wouldn't let me go on. So I'll click next, and it just would still say, oops, still locked. Or if I didn't even get the actual clue, it wouldn't let you answer. So that's a really fun and easy way to make sure your students actually move on. And so this would be the very last one. It says, yay, you escaped, and you would submit it to your teacher. Aren't those really fun ways to get your kids involved with learning, to go a little bit more paperless, and just to make things a little bit fun and different in your classroom? So one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, besides going the Google Forms route to become a little bit more paperless, is also to talk about newsletters. Now, if you're like me, I used to send these monthly or weekly newsletters long ago, and I thought this was such an organized way to send things. It was so beautiful, and I could give parents a little reminder, the important info, tell them what we're learning, classroom news, all of that good stuff. And I felt like I was doing such a good job keeping my parents informed of all of this. But did you know there's an easier way to do this without having to send out a bunch of papers? Like I said, not everyone is going to have digital device access at home, and that's fine because then you can only send a few of the paper newsletters home, right? But what if you could send them out in an email, or you can post them on your website? So I've come across an even better way to do it than the paper route. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is my classroom newsletter template, which you're going to have access to. And what I love about sending a paperless newsletter is that you can update anything that you need to. Parents can glance at it easily over the phone or on their computer and be informed. They can print it out themselves, so you're not having to waste a ton of copies printing out all these newsletters that sometimes might end on a fridge door, or they might end up in the recycle pile, which is fine. So this is just an easier way to cut back on all that paper load. Let me show you how you can customize it. So I've given you a blank template. You can't change anything because this is the background on the image, but you most certainly can add different shapes to kind of make it a little bit more customizable. You can add columns. You can change the background. So I want it transparent. I want black bold lines, so I'm going to make my lines a little bit thicker. You can make them as big or as small. And let's say I want to title this part of my newsletter as reminders. So I would go ahead and center it. I can change the fonts. I love Century Gothic. So I would basically add all my reminders here. And then you can go ahead and make little bullet points like field trip tomorrow, right? So these are all really easy ways to customize it. You can make this newsletter as detailed as you'd like. You can make it as simple as you'd like. You can opt out for no columns and just have just one long paragraph to talk about what the kids are doing in the classroom, what they're learning. But I just love how easy this is to update, how easy it is to work on it. You can work on it at home and send it out in an email that night or the next morning. And having a simple template that you don't have to change every month to add cute fonts that are, holiday themed is just more manageable and easier for me. And this was one way I just cut back on the paper load. I stopped sending all of the cute astrobyte paper home, and I just managed to make it work for me and for my classroom. You can even save this as a JPEG or an image or a PDF and upload it to your classroom website and just have it there for parents to access. This was just an easy way that worked for me. And like I said, not everyone might have access to internet or to devices at home, so print out a few and send those home. But printing out a few and sending those home is much better than printing out 30 and sending those home. So I hope that you've taken a few tips and decided to implement them during the school year. These paperless tips have really saved me so much paper. They've saved me a lot of time. They're just easy ways to manage the paper load, the workload, and have made my school year start a lot smoother. I hope that you learned a lot of really cool tricks if you didn't know about Google Forms and how to use them in your classroom. And feel free to email me with any questions that you have, Aris@sailingintosecond.com. Thanks, guys.